I want to officially welcome you to the Changemaker sessions, everyone. Tonight, as I mentioned, we're working on healthy and effective social media habits for you, my changemakers here, whatever way you help make a difference in the world, whether it's through your communities, whether it's through political activism, whether it is through the work you bring to the places that you live. I'm so happy to have you here. You're all sweet souls here, and I'm sure those of you who are watching the replay are equally as sweet. I'm Kimberly Carroll. I am a coach for changemakers. So I help those who are trying to make a bigger difference in the world with the inner work and the performance, high performance habits, and the strategies to basically take you and your mission to the next level. That's my goal. That's my mandate in life. Tonight, we're going to look at habits that prevent you from getting hijacked by social media. Okay, we want to put a little bit of guardrails in for you as you're driving the road of social media, and I want to try to help you navigate social media more deliberately, and by doing it more deliberately, more effectively. So in other words, I want you to be able to use social media without wanting to pull your hair out. And folks, just so that I have a better sense of sort of where everybody's lying in the world of social media, what platforms are you active on? Maybe put what your number one platform is, and then if there are other ones, put them in brackets. So I just have a better sense of, more curiosity than anything. I like to know where everybody's hanging out these days. So as you kind of got probably from the chat, as we started, we change makers have a real love-hate relationship with social media. So let's start with the love part, because that's always a positive place to start. The reason social media plays so prominently in our lives as change makers is because it is such a powerful tool for reaching and influencing people's hearts and minds. Okay, and that's something that's key in our mission. Social media has democratized influence. Okay, people that never used to have a voice for good or bad. People that were voiceless before have a voice, and it also makes building community and collaborations with fellow change makers so much more accessible than ever before in history. So that is a lot of love. Okay, that's a lot of good that we have from social media. The hate part, it can be a war zone. I mean, so many opportunities for irritating or really disturbing interactions. It's a huge time suck, or it can be a huge time suck, both posting and consuming. It can be really confusing how to use it and how to show up online. There's the whole issue of comparitis, I like to call it, which, can leave you feeling like a piece of shit. And I mean, it's just generally can be a scary, exhausting place to be. Just show of hands, does anybody actually feel dread going on social media sometimes? Yeah, the hands are coming up a little bit. Okay, so not too much dread, but there is definitely maybe a little bit more exhaustion. Does anybody who feels more exhausted by social media? Okay. Yeah, April's got both hands up in the air. Hi, darling, didn't see you there. Lovely. So this evening, I want to try to incorporate a little bit more column A, the love, into your social media experience. What this workshop isn't is it's not a how-to on creating content that will 10x your followers. We will talk a little bit about what makes effective content, but I'm not a social media expert, folks. I'm here to take care of your innards, and I will help you with the basics of, like I said, being more effective in how you use and navigate social media, basically using social media without losing your shit. So I think before we dive into the pieces of the puzzle, I would really like to get us in this place that I think we should always be on, preferably when going on social media, and that is a place where we feel rooted to real life. Okay, we feel rooted to what is tangible and feelable and seeable, okay, to our senses. So just humor me for a second, and I'm just going to have everyone close your eyes. And let's just take in a nice starting big breath, slow. And let's just do some shoulder rolls, really slow. And I want you to enjoy this. Okay, again, so many of us are in a schedule where we are just kind of pushing and in our heads trying to think 5 steps ahead of ourselves all the time. Be here right now and just feel the slow movement of the shoulders. Feel where it stretches. Feel where maybe it burns. Feel where it starts to release. And as you're rolling the shoulders backwards, I want you to feel the chest start to fall open a little bit. Really breathing to open up that chest. And then letting the shoulders relax back and down. And we've all had probably a day so far. Maybe some of you were late getting home. Maybe it was a long day of boring meetings. Maybe some of you spilled water on your computer. So let's just take a deep breath into whatever junk is in our body from the day that was. And on the exhale, let's just do a shakeout. Okay, shaking out the shoulders, shaking out the hips, shaking out the face, shaking all the expression out of the face. And then letting everything go slack. And now I want you to feel your body on the seat beneath you and really feeling, your body as it relaxes into the seat. Just really feel the pressure point where your seat meets the surface beneath you. That even more, like you could melt into your seat. And now listening to a sound in your environment. Listening to that one sound. And if you can still hear me, just nod your head so I can make sure. Thank you. So listening to one sound in your environment, and I want you to put all of your concentration into that sound while I shut up. And I want you to breathe into the vibration of that sound. I want you to almost feel like you could climb up into it and roll around in that sound. And now I want you to reach for something in front of you that you can just lay your fingers on. It might be a piece of material. It might be a smooth surface. It might be a part of your clothing. And I want you to just take a moment and to really feel what's beneath your fingers. Okay, just feel, is there a roughness? Is it smooth? Is it warm to the touch, cool to the touch? Is it porous? Is it dense? Does it tickle? Does it soothe? Really breathe into this. And finally, with your eyes closed or cast downward, just noticing the patterns and colors that you're seeing inside your lids, shapes, the light and the shadow. And finally, just noticing around you what is good and safe. Maybe it's that you're in a warm place. Maybe it's somewhat still. Maybe there's loved ones not very far from you, or just a phone call away. Maybe your belly feels full. What is good? Right here, right now, just name it inside, silently to yourself. Name it and breathe into it. All right, and let's all ground that with just a nice, big, expansive breath. And letting go with a sigh. And when you're ready, coming back to eyes open. So when, I like to just do, generally, I like to do a little check-in when we get together. But I especially thought it would be good to do one that was more sensory. And so, yeah, so I want you to notice, like, this is a really good thing to do when you're caught up in this sort of uh, rush of social media, getting caught up in the whirl of, the excitement or the scariness. This is a really great thing to do. Okay, put it down and just tune into the feelings, the sensations. Okay, sound is a really strong one for me, but for you it might be smell, it might be taste, and whatever it is, choose that and just let it bring you back to what is real. Okay, because that's one of the big things about social media. We get caught up in this world that we think is chasing us at every at every moment. And if we just, actually, you know what, while I'm talking about this, I want to show you a little clip, because she says it so much better than me. Okay, so Issa Rae, you probably all have heard of her. This was a little bit from a Saturday Night Live monologue she did. So I just want you to take a listen and see if it sounds familiar.
I even dealt with bullies sometimes, which you guys know as Twitter. Twitter can be so scary. Sometimes being dragged on social media feels like a low stakes horror movie, where when you're on it, it feels like, oh my God, they're coming for me, what am I gonna do? And then your battery dies and you're like, oh, I guess I'll just go outside.
So can anybody relate to that? Yeah, I was just like, that is how it feels. It feels like the hordes are chasing us sometimes. We forget what's real life. And so this is the practices we're going to work with are ones to help you remember that there is real life, and to be able to cultivate the boundaries that will help you to remember that. So tonight, what we're going to do is we'll talk about boundaries. We're going to then talk about some of the things that we need to keep in mind in showing up in social media that are going to make us feel better about the experience. We're going to also talk about how to deal with difficult situations on social media, trolls, etc. We're going to talk a little bit about the basics of engaging posts as change makers. Okay, so that's our sort of order of the evening. And I know it may seem a little bit strange to start off our workshop on social media with talking about how to stay off of social media, but this is a really important piece, and this is what I want to start with, because it's the most important piece, and that is to have boundaries around this thing that can very much take you hostage. So I think the only way that you're going to have enough presence of mind to use social media wisely is if you have reasonable boundaries around it. You see, folks, we as a society have gotten so addicted to the stimulus of constant social media. We've lost most of the rejuvenating space in our life. I mean, between social media and texting, that the natural pauses and breaths that we used to have built into our day are gone. Like walking to work or waiting for the kettle to boil or standing on an elevator. So many folks now fill that with just scrolling social media. And social media without deliberate boundaries can be devastating to your energy. It can be devastating to your confidence, and it's especially devastating to your peace. Not only if you're always sort of engaged on social media, do you not have time to practice presence, but the stimulus that comes from social media, especially if it's negative, it's going to have your adrenaline constantly spiking. Okay, so even when you're not on social media, you're going to kind of have the twitches. Okay, you're going to always have this little bit of sense of anxiety around this, because we weren't designed as human beings to be exposed around the clock to this big, scary online world where anyone from anywhere can come at you with anything. Okay, think about that. If that was the case in our real life, we would be probably hiding under our beds at all times. Okay, so the fact that we're sort of exposing ourselves to this in a virtual world can be very concerning. And even when social media isn't hostile, like when the exchanges aren't hostile, it can be exhausting, because I'm going to bet all of you here are pretty empathetic people. Okay. You are really tuned in to pain, people's feelings. And then here you are in this world that has a barrage of what's wrong. It shows you the extremes of suffering, and you don't even necessarily know when it's going to like pop out of the screen at you. So all of this, you need to understand, like, this isn't just a light topic. We're talking, oh, social media, it's not such a bother. It's serious, folks. It's especially serious because I need you to understand how much social media is involved in our life. So let me just see if I can find this stat here. Oh yeah, so Data Reportal says that the typical social media user spends about 2.5 hours per day on social media. That is 864 hours a year. That is 36 days of our year, which is over a month of social media, scrolling social media. Can you believe it? Isn't that alarming? Yeah. So, I mean, I know for some of you that might not be that high, or it might be higher. But this is the average social media user. And of course, we know that social media is designed to keep you sucked in. So all that to say, you regularly need times, folks, when you can't be reached by the outside world so you can feel safe. Okay, as change makers, we're already pushing against the status quo, a lot of the time. We're already dealing, in our personal lives with people who don't necessarily agree with us or think we're extreme or whatever it is, or a killjoy. And so we also can't have this sort of assault on top of us, where the outside world can basically grab us and take us for a ride. You need some time where you can be safe from crappy comments on Facebook or demands by colleagues, on LinkedIn, or comparing yourself to others on Instagram. It's so important to unplug from social media so you can create a sanctuary of here and now and cultivate a sense of innate security. Okay. Now, how you do that is a lesson for another time. I'm sure got a lot of videos that you on my YouTube channel that you can check out about. What I really want to, hit home right now is you need to unplug. Okay, so I have a few different habits around unplugging from social media and the digital world altogether. And you don't need to do all of these, but I'm going to just share them with you, and I want you to see which ones speak to you. One that I started probably 3 or 4 years ago that I love is not going online for the first hour of the day. There is a study that found 61% of people who have smartphones will look at them within 5 minutes of waking up. Okay, before they've even come to consciousness and sorted through what was dreamland and what's reality. And they're grabbing their phones and looking and scrolling. And to me, folks, that is the equivalent of running outside of your house with your pajamas on into the middle of a busy street, all dazed and confused. You're too vulnerable to be out there. You aren't centered and fortified for your day first thing in the morning. So you've got to be kind to yourself. And I want you to be real here with me. Who would say that they go on to their, onto social media in the first hour of the day? Raise of hands. Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, a lot. And you folks are the ones I would expect to know better. But so you can imagine what the rest of the world is doing, right? And I get it. I get that. Again, a lot of us are using social media to further our mission, to again create community. There's a lot of reasons we want to be on that. But please, let's see if you can do an experiment and not go on for the first hour of the day. Nurture yourself. Be kind to yourself. It's such an act of love. Okay. So on the other end of the day, sleep experts recommend getting off all of your screens at least an hour before bedtime. So this is one that I'm not always so great at, but I am very aware of it. And I'm definitely, if I'm using screens, it's usually just to text my loved ones. But so instead of scrolling Instagram before jumping into bed, or scrolling Instagram in bed, how about having a quiet bath or doing some stretches or some analog reading or listening to a meditation? This signals to your body that it's safe. It's safe to start letting go and relaxing, which of course will lay the groundwork for a really solid sleep, a more rejuvenating sleep. And when we're trying to change the world, my dears, the more energizing sleep we have, the better. Carrie said, I must do my Wordle, Quirtle, and Octordole before bed. I don't even know what an Octordole is, but I think it must be very hard. If that relaxes you, darling, then you should do that. But I try to get rid of anything that is not relaxing. Anyway, that's I guess, again, a conversation for another time. The other thing that I love, and if you've worked with me for any length of time, you know about my sacred Sundays. One day a week where I try not to make any plans. I try not to do anything out of obligation, just a day to tune in and follow my own rhythms. But the other thing about that day is I don't go on social media. Okay, I really try not to go on social media. I try to schedule things on social media ahead of time or get somebody to schedule them for me. I just don't. Okay, because we know what it's like. You go on for one thing, and it's half an hour later, and you're like, "What the hell just happened?" I'm a pretty disciplined person, folks, but I will often find myself going, "What? Who am I? Where am I?" And that's how it is. Those apps are designed, so we have to be really careful. And so what that does is having a full day where your system can unplug from, again, being held hostage by other people's workings. It's a really great exercise. And I'm not saying you implement it right away, but why not try it? How about this Sunday? And if you can't do it for the whole day, how about just the morning? Or how about just the afternoon? Or how about just the evening? Okay, depending on where you're at. But it's such a great thing to be able to give yourself the gift of some safety. And not having to strain your brain being in other people's lives and business. Okay, so those are a few of the ways that I recommend you just stay off of social media, okay? But let's talk about maintaining boundaries when you go on to social media. Those are equally as important. So I think it's really important for you to get honest with yourself and decide how much time can you afford. to be on social media? Okay, what makes sense with what you're trying to accomplish? And I'm not saying it should just be for your activism. I mean, again, social media can be for community building, for relationship building, to not feel quite so alone in this, to get new ideas, to get inspiration. That's okay. But to get really honest about yourself, what is that kind of thing worth to you? How much is that worth 36 days of your life? Or is it worth 5 days of your life? And so of your year, I should say. And so I think it would be a really great thing to think about at this juncture what is healthy and helpful for you as far as time to be on social media, and to be realistic about that. So if you haven't already done this, what I'm going to suggest is that you do a little audit for a week, okay? That you keep track of how much time, honestly, you're spending on social media. So there's different ways to do that. I know phones, I know iPhones, and I imagine Androids keep track of how much time you spend on each app. It can be a little complicated because then you have to go in and you have to add up each app, but you can do that. You could even do it for the week that was. If you do all your social media on your phone, you can find out the week that was. How much time you spent on social media between the different apps. You can, if you do a lot of your social media on your computer, you can use Clockify. It's a little online app that allows you to easily keep track of the time you spend on things. Of course, there's multiple apps for this kind of thing, but one of the simplest things is grab your phone, put on the stopwatch, and every time you go on social media, whether it's on your phone or whether it's on your computer, just press start and press stop at the end, and then just see at the end of the week how much time you have on that stopwatch. So I think it's, once you've done this audit, you may realize that the time that you're using to go on social media is beyond what you feel it's worth. And that may be when you need to put a limit on your app use. As you might know that we don't consciously sort of pay attention to how much time we spend on social media very often. And so it might help to have an app. So even on iPhone, you go to settings, you go to screen time, and you go to app limits, and you can set a limit for your social media apps, right? Like that. And basically when it's done, you're done. When your time is up, you're not getting back on those apps for the rest of the day. I think you'd have to uninstall the app in order to be able to get back on. And so if anybody has any other apps that they love, put them in the chat. I love to hear what everybody's using. But to be able to, find ways, if you can't sort of consciously, if you're not very conscious about it, it would be really helpful to have an app limit to use. Now let's talk about special rules and special boundaries around consuming the really painful stuff on social media. Okay, so animals in factory farms, people suffering in Gaza, bleak climate crisis articles, or it could just be the stuff that's really personally, that's distressing in your social life, like seeing stuff of your exes or a group that you're having trouble with that you're in. I think it's really important to not be tackling things as they come to you on social media, but to actually have a place you put them. Okay, so let's just say a video comes up and you're like, oh, I should see that video. I know it's going to be horrifying. Get the link, have a little, little list on your phone, or a little list on the laptop, on your desktop, and add that link. And have 1 or 2 times a week, or it could even be once a day if you really need to sort through this stuff, but have a time that is deliberately set aside for you to be able to watch and take in the hard stuff. It has to be a time that has enough space around it that you can, you don't need to rush it, and that you have some time to process it. Okay, because what is happening in social media, especially for us change makers, is we are getting pummeled by the hard stuff. Okay, we're getting pummeled by it, and believe me, I know this is part of our path. Is we have our eyes open to stuff that most people are not willing to have their eyes open to. But you cannot do that to yourself 24/7. Okay, you can't even do it to yourself for like multi hours of the day. It's too much for your system. It doesn't make you an effective change maker. It depletes you. It can destroy you. Okay. And especially, again, being more sensitive and attuned and empathetic with other beings. So, what I recommend is when you have this list, let's just say you decide that uh, once a day, I'm going to look at this list and I'm going to go through this stuff. I want you to make sure that that time of the day is a time when there's not a lot of competing things, where you're not already revved up and stressed out by a lot of other things. And I know you're like, well, I should just do it while I'm already upset. No, no, it's the wrong thing to do. So when you have a little bit of stillness and a little bit of space, first of all, to take some deep breaths, to anchor yourself here, just like we did in that meditation, and then to watch. And then after you've watched, whether it's one thing or a few things, find a way to process it. Now, you could do that just by doing a stream of consciousness writing, just what's came up for you, what you're feeling. You could do it just by simply, breathing into where the pain is in your body, and then doing a nice shakeout of it. Okay. Our last Changemaker session was all about tools for dealing with anxiety. And I always say that shakeout is our best friend. Okay. When we have something that is just really weighing heavy on us, we can't ignore it. We need to breathe into it and need to feel it, acknowledge it, but then we can do a nice little shake off of it. Okay. It can be 10-second, 5-second, 2-second shakeout. But you need a way to be able to take this really hard stuff and move it through you. Okay, move it through you and out of you. You'll retain the memory of the things. You'll retain the important things, but you cannot be holding on to all of it all the time. And that's what happens when we take in and consume hard stuff without properly processing it. I actually have a Changemaker session called "What to Do with the Pain" that is on my YouTube channel. So if you're interested in finding out more about pain processing, that's a really good one to check out. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about this idea of first of all, relegating some of these harder videos or articles or whatever to a certain time of week? Or do you have any questions about that sort of pain processing? Yeah, Connie says sometimes it's the written descriptions that can be brutal and you had no idea how hard hitting it was going to be. Just assume it's going to be bad, Connie, okay? I think it's just better that anything that has to do with the hard stuff is better to put in a to review file. All right. So it can be a daily file if you need to. It can be a weekly file. Again, it depends how much of this kind of thing you're taking in on a daily basis. And for me, I think some of you know that I do work on undercover videos in animal rights, and so undercover videos in factory farms, animal exploitation places, and so. We are basically, I have to create this space where when I watch this video, I go into it grounded, and at the end of it, I have to process and I have to have space to be able to reground again. So we talked about boundaries, but let's talk about how to be more deliberate when you are on social media, how to show up. Some people's stress around social media is not knowing who to be online or feeling like you have to be someone other than yourself. I don't know if this resonates with anybody. Does anybody sort of like go, oh, I don't actually know how I'm supposed to be, how I'm supposed to talk, what I'm supposed to show up like, how I'm supposed to interact, or that you are maybe playing a role that you've fallen into that you don't love. Like some people get very sarcastic online, and they don't love it, or they get really, they get very flippant, and they don't love that. That's not them. I mean, it's like the Twitter, tyrant who's like going after everybody hard. They're just like a viper on Twitter, and then you meet them in real life, and they're so meek. They're so meek, and it doesn't line up, and it probably doesn't feel very authentic to that person. So you don't have to do what everyone else is doing, folks. Your authentic style is what you do best, and that's what people like, is when people are doing what they do best. Okay, when people are in their authenticity, even if it's a little rough around the edges. Okay, so it's your authentic style, whether it's minimal or verbose, whether it's funny or serious, whether it's enthusiastic or sarcastic, whether it's warm or whether it's intellectual. You're being like, maybe you're just a nerd and you should just love it. Okay, because when you're trying to emulate someone else, it takes you further away from who you are. It's taking you in the wrong direction. So yes, you may not catch those people who like to look at bikini photos, but you're much more likely to reach the people that you will most naturally have the power to affect. Okay, so it's not about looking for all these followers. It's about looking for the followers that are right to you. Okay, right for you, the ones that you can have a connection with, the ones that can relate to you, because the ones that can relate to you will be the ones that you're able to inspire and influence or collaborate with or exchange ideas, important ideas with. So for example, on social media, there are a lot of folks who are probably repelled by my posts. Maybe like really religious people, because I like to drop an F-bomb a lot. Maybe people in hustle culture, because I talk a lot about resting and slowing down. I'm not looking to speak to everyone. I'm looking for the folks that resonate with me on some levels, because those are the ones that I actually have a chance of reaching and influencing. So why would I spend a bunch of time trying to contort myself into somebody I'm not? Because those people that I attract, they're probably not going to resonate with me anyway, really, when it gets down to it. So I'd like to hear in the chat, um, are there ways that you feel you're not showing up authentically on social media? Maybe you're playing a little small, or maybe you're making your life more impressive than it is. Maybe you're not letting your humor or nuttiness sort of show. Maybe you're kind of getting caught up in trying to be too perfect or make it too perfect, or maybe you're being more casual than what feels natural to you. Again, I know people who are like pretty buttoned up people and pretty serious and intellectual, and they've watched some videos online and they think they've got to be like, hey girl, you gotta dump his ass. It just doesn't make sense for them. And so yeah, so it goes either way. So just be like a little bit of reality here. If you can put in the chat, and again, if you want to say in what way it doesn't feel as authentic to you, I would love to hear a little bit about how people are not feeling like they're showing up as authentically as they want. And I'll start. I'm sharing one. I have been, the one thing that I really feel isn't authentic to me is like sometimes I have to be like I feel like I have to make it more perfect than it really needs to be, like especially video and things like that. On like I'm recording a video for Instagram, and I'm like I need to know what I'm saying, and I need to be organized and everything, and I'm like, maybe I could just talk a little bit more like myself. So that's a piece that I think I'm trying to be a little bit more mindful of, and especially in the way I write as well. So I'm just gonna sort of read out a couple of things that folks say. I think I'm a naturally nerdy. Let's see. I think I'm a naturally nerdy girl, depressed, but those things aren't helpful, not authentic. I try to be cheerful. Disagree. agree. I mean, I think it is people. There is a sense of, sometimes it's nice to have some upbeat things, but it's also nice to be real. And I'll tell you, nerdy girl, and those that have a nerdy heart, which is a lot of us, and have some struggles with depression, a lot of us. When they see that realness in you, they're gonna go, "Oh, she gets me. I wonder what else she has to say. I bet, I'm curious now because she gets me." So it's an important piece. Don't give up who you are, okay? Because that is what will actually reach people and bring you the people that, like I said, you could have the capacity to really significantly interact with. Let me see. Another one. I oscillate between posting photos with my dog, cute things students say, some animal justice, and what's going on in Gaza. I'm mindful that I don't want to bring my friends down, but it's like during the lockdowns where I feel compelled to say something. Yeah, yes, I completely relate to this one. And so I think just like you are, David, I think it's important for your social media to reflect that you are a um, multifaceted person, and you really do care about what's going on in Gaza, and you care about animal rights, and yet you are also fun loving, and you are a teacher, and all that sort of thing. And so you need to be able to reflect that on social media. I think that is a really good representation. And we're actually going to talk a little bit more in just a few minutes about that magical combination. Because yes, I think we all know those people that are brutally honest about what's going wrong in their life. So there's the ones that you see that life is perfect all the time, and then there's the ones that you only hear from them when shit's going down. You only hear these long posts about how awful everything is. And I don't mind how awful everything is post if I'm seeing the other parts of this person, okay? And I don't mind seeing the beauty and the exquisiteness of your life if I'm seeing some of the real shit too, okay? I think that goes for a lot of people. You endear yourself by showing the different parts of yourself. Um, Kirsten says, I feel pressure to share personal life stuff, but kind of hate it. I feel like if I don't, my social media is too one note. Yeah, Kirsten, this is such a great thing to bring up. I also feel that pressure too. Maybe in the chat, you can let me know. So is the authentic part that you feel like you're trying to do personal stuff, but it doesn't feel good to you? Is that it? Okay. Well, then you don't need to do personal stuff. You really don't. You could do just, just mix up your more change making pieces with things that are interesting to you, or fascinating, or made you smile. Just mix it up with things like that, and express your personality through your captions. Okay, express your personality more there. You can be just like, oh, I'm obsessed with this, here it comes. Or I'm so, I'm so shy in this way, you wouldn't believe blah, blah, blah. So just to be able to bring some of your personality without having to pour out, we did this, I do this, my wife and I love each other like this, things like that. So you don't need to do that. Find a way with what makes you comfortable to insert your personality. Okay, love it. Yes, it feels awkward, she said. Okay, one of the things I think that really drains our energy on social media is something I call comparitis. I'm sure you know what that means. It's the anxiety, it's the FOMO, it's the drop in self-worth you get when watching other people on social media and thinking that you're falling short, okay? It used to be, folks, like if anybody can remember before the time of social media, it used to be that we'd get that feeling when we picked up a fashion magazine or looked at the society, pages and newspaper. Now with social media, our noses are in it all the time. So first of all, you need to keep hitting it home to yourself. This is not real. Okay, this is what most of what you're seeing on social media are the highlights, okay? Again, some people share the painful things, but almost nobody shares the kind of low-grade messiness of in between the highs and the lows, which is most of our life. Most of our life is the kind of routine, mundane stuff, and I think we all forget about that. I would love to see an Instagram series of people vacuuming. Okay, not vacuuming with a cute cat popping out, or not vacuuming and then having a hilarious trip, but just vacuuming. I mean, it's something so many of us do, and being able to just see some of the in betweens. Um, I mean, I want you to look, after this, I want you to look at your social media feed, like your wall or your own grid on Instagram, and I want you to notice, does it reflect the bad and the in between and the fabulous, or is it just one piece? And so it's important to have a balance of those. Okay, so just you have to remind yourself, nobody looks that good all the time, nobody speaks perfectly all the time, nobody lives beautifully all the time. So stop comparing yourself to the people who really, there's so many people on social media who do this for a living. It's their job to look great all the time and to make people, swoon at their feeds. Okay, so another little way to turn around this comparitis, folks, is, how many of you have heard of Schadenfreude? Schadenfreude, having the joy and the misery of others. Okay, it's been around for a long time. Thank you. Well, there's kind of a new movement called Freude. So the joy, taking joy in the joy of others, taking joy in the success of others. And I think this is a beautiful way of being able to counter some of that comparitis. So, kind of sinking into the idea that we're all in this together, folks, no matter if we're right or left, or what country we're from, or what our views are on the climate. We are still brothers and sisters. All right. And I know that is very distressing to face once in a while, but we belong to this same nature, this same energy. And instead of the jealousy, the envy, the feeling lesser than, how about in little ways we start to celebrate? We start to celebrate when other people say something really well, or when somebody, has an experience that's really phenomenal. And I'm sure many of you do that already. But maybe we could test ourselves. Like, maybe if there's someone in our movement that we feel a lot of insecurity around, maybe we could watch them with this idea of, this is such a privilege to be able to watch and learn from their knowledge, or their eloquence, or how they build their followers, or their sexiness. You can admire them, you can learn from them, you can say, yay you, I love what you're doing, I want to let it sort of, that energy, fill me up. There are a lot of teachers in my realm who I just adore, and I think they're phenomenal. And sometimes I'm like, oh God, what am I doing teaching when there's these amazing people out there? But I've changed my thinking. So when I see and listen to those people or attend things, I just go, oh, I just fall in love with what they're saying. I just really go, oh, you said that so well. I'm just going to eat that up. I'm going to eat that up, and it's part of me. We're part of each other. So I know that's a little bit esoteric, but I just really wanted to throw that out to you as a little bit of an antidote to the idea of comparitis. Okay, let's talk about another really important pillar for how to show up on social media. And folks, that's integrity. Okay. An important piece of feeling good on social media is to keep your love and integrity intact when you go on social media. You're all here. because you want to be a force for good in the world. I know you, I know most of you, and you want a more compassionate, more respectful, more healthy place. So how the hell does that fit into you doing a smackdown on that dude on that post about housing? How does that work? How does that? I don't. That's not quite in alignment. And this is the little conversation I have to have with myself once in a while. It's like, Kimberly, you know what your end goal is. It's a more compassionate, respectful, healthy world. So how does this post or how does this comment contribute to this, or how does it damage this? So I think it's really important, if this is a piece like you find yourself maybe not behaving to the in the expansive way that you would really like to look back and say you behaved on social media. Here are some little tips to help keep you rooted in this. I like to act like the person that I'm interacting with is in front of me. Okay. Again, I think that's a big problem with social media is people feel too removed, and they talk to others like they are things, like they are impositions, or like they are hateful things. Whereas most people, and it's comforting to know this, most people would not speak to another person like that to their face. Okay, so for us, it's very important to just be able to say, okay, this person isn't two-dimensional. If they were standing here before me, I might say something still very strongly. I will still disagree till the cows come home, but I would do it in a much more understanding and a much more respectful, a kind way. And so we've seen experiments. There's some different experiments that you might have seen on YouTube, taking people that would naturally be enemies on social media and putting them in a room together and having them do an exercise together, having them share about each other. And by the end, inevitably, they're so close, they're buddies. But we don't have that on social media. So we have to do our best to bring that to our interactions. And another thing that helps me to kind of keep me from behaving beastly is I like to imagine I like to imagine how it would be if you're somebody that you try to show up for as your best self was witnessing this interaction, like your kid or a colleague that you like, or your mom or your students. Okay, so for me, it's my coachees. Okay, it's my students. If I'm doing something and I'm like, should I not? I'm like, if my students were watching me, would they be kind of disappointed? Like, would I be letting them down? And that's a really good way for me to be able to gauge. Again, not that I'm trying to be all perfect and good, but I always, in every interaction I have in my life, I want to be at least respectful. Okay. And so this isn't to censure you. This isn't to say you can't speak strongly around things and show truths. But you just need to ask yourself, what is the most respectful way I can do this? And again, that doesn't mean you don't rock the boat. It doesn't mean that you don't say things that are bold. It's important to wake folks up, everyone, and that's not always comfortable. But the ways that you can mitigate that is to watch the blaming, the finger pointing. Okay, it's never great to say, "Well, you probably blah blah blah." It's good to say, we have this pattern in our society, or this seems to be the problem with us, things like that. Not villainizing. I was on the edge of that with a post last week because I'm not a big fan of Pierre Poilievre, who is the head of Conservatives in Canada and could be the next prime minister. And I'm really baffled, and I feel like not enough people are awake to this. And so I was just, I gave an example of something that was quite quite hideous that he had done. And I just, but I knew I didn't want it just to be like a pile on. So I said to my conservative friends or my friends that are thinking about voting, can you share with me what it is that appeals to you about him and the conservatives? And it was really good information for me to be able to get into the minds of the people that are wanting to support. One of the things I'm finding out is nobody actually likes this guy. They're doing it as a vote against the government that's in. So a protest vote. Thank you. And so that's really good information for me as a change maker to know. And I wouldn't have known that unless I was willing to hear, to make it more of an open-ended thing instead of you suck if you support him kind of thing. All right. So curiosity is a really great way to handle some of these thornier issues on social media. And it's always good to just ask yourself, keep asking yourself, what's your goal in posting this? Is if it's to wake people up, then you need to make it so that people are actually going to read it and people are actually going to take it in. And I'll tell you what, if you shame somebody in a post, they are not going to take it in. The shame wall goes up, and the shame wall is one of the most powerful things out there. Nothing gets through it. Nothing. Okay. So if you preface something really important by shaming somebody, they will never, ever get it. So it's better to figure out a softer, kinder, more respectful way to say it. And then some of the harder facts that people aren't willing to look at, they might be willing to look at. Okay. Again, folks, I am not the be all end all authority on how to navigate social media. I'm telling you what I see works for me as somebody who has a high value or has a value of, respectful, loving exchanges in my integrity. If that's not it, you and you just want to blow shit up, then then this is maybe not the right advice for you. I believe I believe somewhat in blowing things up. I believe in blowing things up, but not from a place of hate, but from a place of we need to restart. And because if you blow things up from a place of hate, you're going to start building things up from that same place of hate. And you're just going to perpetuate this cycle of disaster. Okay. So let me see here. I'm running out of time, so I better hurry this up here. Okay. Here is a couple of rules that have helped me when I have been very close to blowing shit up. If I have a 1 hour rule. If something gets posted towards me and it is infuriating, I got to give it an hour. I can never automatically respond. Okay. I need to step away, and because coming at it from a powerless place, coming at it from a place of being activated, it's always going to cost you far more time and energy in the end. Okay, trust me, it's much better to take the time and to properly formulate how you come back to this. And if it's really strong, you got to give it a 1 day rule. And here's a really good one. This one really gets me. If you feel like you have to respond right away, that absolutely means you shouldn't. Okay, the more that you have this thrust to respond, the more you are not in the right place to respond. Okay, the more you need to step away. So know that when you are activated like that, even more reason to step away. Okay, yeah, this one has saved me multiple times. I think if you share that sort of desire with me of contributing to a solution in the social media world and the world at large, as opposed to making it worse, I think bridge building is always a great intention to really hold to when you're navigating thorny exchanges as a change maker. So let's just say trying not to take it personal when someone reacts, okay? Asking questions of them instead of just lecturing. Figuring out, taking a little bit of time to figure out where they're coming from so that you can speak to it, and staying focused and not going off in a bunch of different directions. And again, you can state the hard stuff, but without the finger pointing, the name calling, the sarcasm, unless it's really funny and without bringing the shame wall up, okay? And last, when you're in the business of bridge building and social media, appeal to people's most expansive self. Okay, so let's see. Someone here said, many of my conversations start with no judgment because I ate animals and their products for 55 years, and it keeps the shame wall down. Yeah, so Karen, that's how you start your conversations. I love that. So you right away say, I'm guilty. I'm not perfect. Like a lot of people think social justice activists are, think they're perfect, think they've got it all going on. And it's really good to be able to say, I'm as fucked up as the next person. I just happen to have gotten some information and delved into this place and been able to make some changes. And so that, that is a really wonderful place to come from. But appealing to their most expansive self, it would be like, in the middle of a conversation where they're going at you, for you to be able to say, I see that, maybe you take a minute to look at their profile and you can say, I see that you do a lot of, you'd spend a lot of time in nature. So I know you love nature. So why don't we talk about the climate crisis from that place, okay? And why don't we take it from there? Because I know you care. We're just in disagreement about the severity of it or how to come at it, so really trying to zone into what might speak to them more and really appealing to the more expansive side of them. Because if you appeal to the part of them that is shitty and spiteful and selfish, damn well they're going to drop to that place faster than you can, snap your fingers. Okay. All right, folks, let me see. Some hard and fast rules around trolls. You got to have these. You need to decide what conversations are worth having because there are millions of conversations to have on social media, and you cannot have them all because social media is one tiny little bit of your toolkit as a change maker, okay? So you need to be able to determine which are the conversations that you get involved with. And I think you need to make up your own mind about it. But for me, I find I decide if it's meaningful to connect on this conversation, if it's someone close to you that how they are affects how your life is going to be. Maybe this person has an influence on an audience that matters. They would be worth taking the time for. Maybe it's just somebody who is showing enough curiosity that you could have an exchange that is substantial. Or of course, maybe it's somebody that has a perspective that's just important for you to take in. And then there are just the trolls. And you should be able to spot them right away. They're not responding to what you say back. They're just amping it up. They're usually getting nasty, or they keep on changing the subject and they keep blowing it up to bigger and bigger different things, conflate different things. No time for that. You don't have time for that. Your time is far too valuable, my dears. Get out, get out, get out. Okay. We do not have those conversations. You just wish them well and you get out of there. And trolls aren't just, the trolls that you don't know. The trolls there can be people in your social circle that you just know no matter what you say, they're going to come on, they're going to want to fight. You don't have time for that. All right. Okay, last thing, and I know I've gone over, folks, and I appreciate you staying with me. I didn't really think I had this much information, so I was going fast, but I'll speed it up here. This is the last section, and this is the basics of engaging posts, okay? So we were just talking about interacting, but let's talk about posts themselves. If you want social media to be a tool where you get connected to allies and potential allies in your mission, we need to be sharing about the issues that are meaningful to us. But as some of you mentioned in the chat, that can often alienate folks. I don't want you to be the social media grim reaper, okay? I want you to be somebody that people look at and they relate to and they want to emulate, or they get inspired by, or they can be playful with. So that is why it's really important to take these things into consideration. Bring your personality to the table. We already kind of covered that, but it's an important piece. Don't be a robot. Don't just spit out, pieces and clips and bits of articles. Say something. What does this mean to you? I don't think it's worth posting something about your issue if you don't share what it means to you, what you got out of it, or a question you have for others about it. Okay, it's just not even really worth it, because remember, it's social media. Social. It means people are here and they're taking in information because it's got a social element to it. I think it's important that we watch the combination of content that we put out. So some of you mentioned, that you try to pepper in some personal posts. And I think it's really important to have a well-rounded feed, just like you are a well-rounded person, or at least I hope that you are striving to be a well-rounded person, because those are the people, the people that have joy, or the people that are interesting or are dynamic or are kind or loving. Those are the people that others want to emulate. Those are the people that others want to say, hey, what are you up to? What are you doing? What are your thoughts about that? I want to hear what you have to say about that. And so be an interesting person and reflect that on social media. I know that can be a tall order, but I think all of you are probably pretty interesting in your own ways. I'm not talking about, flying around the world interesting. I'm talking about, interesting thoughts. Interesting observations. Are you somebody who's just really loving and can, just make people feel better? Then bring that out. Are you somebody that just has information at the tip of your fingers? Take pride in that, but just more of yourself. Okay. So just a general, this is my little general formula. I will do one issue. So as far as percentage goes, I'd say I do 25% issues of, and my various issues. I will do 25% sort of more professional, like the events and things that I'm doing. I will do another 25% of just value added sort of things to bring a smile to people's face, or to help them with, get through something, or something that's going to just make them feel good in some way and feel closer to me. And then I do 25% kind of personal. And you don't need to do that, but that's kind of how it comes out for me when I look at it. And that's the way that I think I keep my people engaged. I've got a lot of people that aren't change makers, aren't activists, in my social media realm. And that's why, because they get enough of me that they are still curious enough about some of the stuff that they would regularly maybe hide their head in the sand around. Okay. So that is kind of the secret formula that I use. That's what I like too. That's what I like to see in other people's feeds. The other thing around being an engaging poster is the consistency. Okay. Nobody likes the person that's posting 20 things a day. But they also don't like the person that falls away for 2 months. Hey, if you're going to take a sabbatical, all the power to you. Leave social media in the dust. But I'm just saying consistency is really helpful in social media because of the algorithms, but also just people get used to, they get used to your face if you're around a little bit more regularly. And here's one that I have to work really hard on, because I actually don't like spending a lot of time on social media. And that is not what I call posting and ghosting. So the idea that you post and then you take off, you get off social media, and you don't respond to anything on that post, or you don't respond to anybody else's posts. This is a thing that I really need to work on. I'm very aware that it's one of the places I fall down. So don't do that. that. Let's work on that together. But the idea that this is really, as far as algorithms goes, this is really the secret to social media, folks. It's not how often you post, it is how often you are responding. Okay, if there gets to be some back and forth on your posts, that's when people start to see it. Okay, so make it so that if people are posting, you're responding, and maybe you're responding with something to continue the conversation, and also get on other people's posts. Get yourself out there, get yourself known. They're going to start looking at your things. If you're trying to build your followers, that is an important piece to do. Engagement, engagement, engagement. That's what they say. All right. And the last thing I'm going to say is, if you just have a hard time, like social media just feels overwhelming to you, I would recommend taking an hour at the end or beginning of your week and just doing a little rough sketch of what you might want to put out there. Okay. Hey, if you like to share news, you might not be able to, know what news you're going to put, but maybe you're like, Monday, I'm going to do a little, personal post. And then maybe I'm going to do a little promotional thing. And then Tuesday, I'm going to do something like hard hitting. And then I'm going to do something fun in the evening or whatever it is, and just sort of fill out those little pieces. It makes things, like if you have it planned out ahead of time, it's so much less overwhelming for you as somebody who's posting. It might just make social media posting a lot more manageable for you. And that's what we want to do. We don't want, again, your precious energy to be sucked up by this. Folks, I'm going to close, but I just wanted to be able to say, I did had a great conversation this past year with John Oberg, who is a brilliant social media person in the animal rights movement. And he came on the academy I run, Animal Justice Academy, to give us just the lowdown on a bunch of like social media tactics, because we didn't really, this wasn't really about getting into too many tactics. I want to give you a resource, even if animal rights isn't your area. He just, like, the wisdom he has is really great for any area of social justice. So Kirsten has put that in the chat. John is great, and I think you'd really enjoy this conversation if you haven't already seen it. All right, well, folks, I'm so sorry that I didn't get to hear your beautiful melodic voices. I think I know how most of you sound, so I'll play it over in my head. But it was so great. It was so great. Yeah, I'd love, April says, coming from a place of curiosity is my takeaway. What's everybody else's takeaway? I'd love to hear one takeaway that you have from tonight. And we will be meeting again this time 2 weeks from now. I don't know what my topic is going to be, but stay tuned. If you're on my Changemakers list, which I know you are because you're here, you will get information about that in a few days. Kirsten says the 1 hour rule. Yes, I love that one too. So thank you, folks. I hope that you will help in this mission to bring a little bit more light and love to social media. I can't hear you, but can we have hands up around that? Yes, excellent. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for being here and for your beautiful work in the world. I cherish you all. Take care, everyone. Bye.